Hello, beautiful alchemist. Welcome to Reiki Radio. I am your host, Yolanda. And today we have another very enlightening conversation that will support you in your path and hopefully answer some questions around the curiosities we have. We're going to speak today with Lisa Barnett, who is the founder of Akashic Knowing School of Wisdom. And she is an internationally recognized teacher and author of 4 best-selling books on the Akashic Records. She has 30 years of experience in Akashic Record channeling and quantum healing, and she teaches her 5-step wisdom prayer system to assist people to easily access their own soul guidance. She also has some upcoming retreats and events. She has ongoing classes, and you can work with Lisa one-on-one. But in this conversation, she is going to talk to us about our soul's plan. She's also going to help us understand the way that she works in the records, the Akashic Record keepers, who they are, and also what it is that we can do or learn and access within this realm, the Akash. So to learn more about Lisa Barnett and her work and to visit her Akashic Knowing School of Wisdom, go to akashicknowing.com. You can also click on the links below if you are interested in joining her for a retreat in Costa Rica at the end of April. She will also be at a 2-day event in Atlanta in June, and the information for all of this is down in the show description. But for now, just get comfortable, sit back, enjoy the conversation, and I will see you on the other side. Okay, everyone, welcome to Reiki Radio. We're here today with Lisa Barnett of Akashic Knowing School of Wisdom. Welcome to the
Thank
show.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I was telling you before we started recording, I'm excited to have this conversation because what your work centers around is a big question for a lot of people, I think, in this realm and even outside of this realm. And so you do focus a lot on what our soul's plan is, and we will get into that. But obviously, you also focus a lot on the Akashic records, the Akashic realm. So I wanted to start there just to ask you how you got introduced into this work, and if you can tell everyone what the Akashic records are from your lens.
Yes, absolutely. So the Akashic Record is the recording of your soul's journey throughout all time space continuum. And what that actually means is that from the moment your soul individuated from source, it started its journey. And really this very beautiful piece is that the soul has an automatic recording system.
Mm.
So I often would say, just like if you had a GoPro strapped to your head all day and, it would record everything you ever did, who you were, where you lived, this realm, earthly realms, realms in between, galactic realms. So all of this is recorded and held in what we refer to as the Akashic Record or the Akasha. Now, the beautiful thing is that because we are such infinite souls, every person has their very own library. It's not one big old library for, 7 billion people on the planet. You have your very own Akashic library and a team of librarians who are only in service to you.
Mm.
So here is this phenomenal information that most people don't even know about. You've got a dozen record keepers who are out there waiting to talk to you, and we don't even know they exist. So I'm so excited, of course, to share more about this. I was personally, kind of tapped on the shoulder by the record keepers almost 30 years ago. So it was an interesting kind of experience because I was an energy healer and intuitive. And the beautiful woman that I studied with all those years ago would say, after you do a healing for your clients, you want to go up to the gates of their Akashic record and ask their record keepers to fill them up with their highest Akashic energy. Now, you're not allowed to go in, but they will fill your client up with the highest energy and information.
Yeah.
So I said, okay. And I did every day when I would do readings and energy healings. I'd go up to the gates that I saw of that beautiful stone library that I would imagine and say to the record keepers, please, record keepers, would you fill my client up with their highest energy? And I would see sparkles and colors and sometimes like symbols or things coming in, filling them up. And I'd say, thank you. And, back away I go, back down into my body I go. And so years after doing that, what my teacher had said is that we as humans are not allowed into the Akashic Records. So I, of course, believed her.
Mhm.
So, um, so a few years later, I started getting this really expansive information, kind of like a big booming voice with like past lives, future information, soul plan, all this stuff. And I think, wow, that's like so much more than I get as an intuitive energy healer. I was always kind of wowed. And just randomly, it would kind of show up. And I didn't really know what it was because, of course, I was told you can't go into the Akashic Records, and no one was talking about the records really back in the 80s and 90s. It wasn't a common thing.
Yeah.
And so it took me a lot of years before I realized who was speaking to me. And so when I realized and I could actually have a conversation, conscious conversation, I was like, well, what was all that about? And they explained that during the Dark Ages, they, as these pure source energy beings, had pulled the vibration of the Akasha away from Earth because people were using it for their own gain, right? So people during the Dark Ages, of course, Dark Ages makes sense. They were only using it, right, for their own purpose, their own kind of whatever selfish reasoning. Let me figure out what their war plans are so that I can beat that war, where they hide their gold or jewels so I can get them. So they pulled the energy away. So humanity, outside of course, the great mystics of the planet, right? Humanity lost its access to the Akashic Records, and that got kind of spiritually translated to we as humans are not allowed in.
I see.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, it's interesting hearing you say this because back in 2011 is when I came across the Akashic Records and I took a class and all of those things. And I went in my records every day for a few months. We were supposed to go in 30 days after class, but I went for months and information started dropping in even before opening my records in the way that I was taught. And the same, I was taught that you couldn't go in the records for certain types of information and all of these things. However, I really wasn't interested in asking about my path. I was curious about how energy works in terms of energy healing. So that's what I would go in and ask. And I started getting all this, everything I accessed, I was told we couldn't access basically. And
Right.
so, yeah, so then it just became this thing of, well, I don't know what it really is, but I see that there's a lot of information here that we can come into relationship with. So I'm really curious about that with you because it sounds like when you learned there may have been ideas of limitation as well. So were you kind of playing with it or it just so happened from going in the way that you were that you started to see it differently?
Yes. So because I was aware that there was such a thing as the Akashic Records, but I was also, again, told it was off, limits to us humans. I was surprised and then, of course, kind of delighted by all this information that they would give me. So they would, what I realized later is that when I would have a client that had kind of a high enough vibration that we could pop into their Akashic record. So our mutual high vibrations could move us just naturally into that energy.
Yeah.
And so that would happen, and I get all this information. But then they started, once I realized, oh my gosh, I'm talking to Akashic record keepers, then I started to be able to converse directly with them. And they started to ask me for assistance, literally. They said, it's time to re-anchor the energy and we need help, right? We need you to be doing readings and start a school and write books. And I'm like, I'm kind of busy over here. I have like three babies. And so, but of course, when you get a request like that, it's really hard to say no, or it certainly was impossible for me to say no. So I said, yes, I'll do the best I can. It's kind of like, I'll walk this path with you and we'll see how that goes, right? Just
Yeah.
everything has happened, of course, in divine timing. But as I said yes, more information came in. So when they asked me to start a school, I said, I don't know how. And they said, we'll give you all the information. So over the years, they've given me, have to count, like 5, 7. So 8, they've given me 8 access keys in the form of sacred prayers. So
Wow.
they have given me 8 galactic sacred prayers to open you into the Akashic records. Now, the interesting thing to me is that you only need one key, right, to open a door.
Mhm.
But what was happening was there was a few of the early schools, there was probably 2 or 3, maybe really early schools from the 80s or 90s. And they used a sacred prayer also. And they were very Pleiadian. Now,
Mm.
I'm not Pleiadian. So I could open the records with their prayer, but it wasn't a thing for me particularly.
Right.
So they said, we'll give you all these prayers so that all these star seeds, everyone on the planet is virtually a star seed. All of these people can easily open the records. Because otherwise, if you're not very Pleiadian and you're using a Pleiadian access prayer, you may or may not get in. Right. So they were like, we want you to have a lot of access prayers to make it really easy for everybody to open the records. And then they started giving me all these different kind of, um, uh, I call them kind of visualizations, meditations, but often healing tools. So they, over the years have given me, I don't know, 15 or so that I teach my students, right, to call back your energy, to create a rainbow shield, creating better boundaries, realigning, right, to your
Yeah.
Akash so that you actually can get some clear information. And so once you connect in, I think it's pretty simple, although you have to be like really clear to be in your own integrity. But because what I've noticed is that if you're not in integrity and you kind of push out in a way that is not in integrity, so say you asked in your records maybe if your child was, doing drugs or if your spouse was having an affair, right?
Mhm.
Well, it's actually not your business through the Akash, right? You only get to ask about you and what relates to you. So it sounds like you were getting information, even though it might have been more expansive, it was related to you and your purposes,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So it starts to come in for us, whereas someone else wouldn't get that same information because that's not, in alignment with their Akash, with their purpose, with what they've come to do. So I got lots of, prayers, meditations, visualizations, way to help people to start to access their Akashic records.
Okay, so I have so many questions for you, Lisa. So even with that, there's a couple of questions with that. One, is it considered galactic because of everyone potentially being from different places within the universe? But then also, when people come to your school, do they learn all 8, or do you just provide to each person what
Oh,
seems to be resonant with them?
Right. So, because if I gave people 8 prayers, they would be overwhelmed. So I
Yeah.
teach 3 prayers in the first course. And then in the second course, as we're going deeper, they've learned to read the records. One of the 3 prayers always resonates. And so then I'll give them the other 5 and they can play with them and see if there's something that's more resonant that takes them a little bit deeper that sometimes they actually even have healing qualities for a person. So I give them the 8 in what I call Akashic Self Mastery, which is course 1 and 2. So in the beginning, you learn to read the records, right? Just like when you're in first grade, and you have to learn to read. And then in course 2, you get to go in the big library and learn all about all of these different realms that you can really work with past lives in a really powerful way because of course, and I know we'll talk more about a soul plan, but when we come back to earth, we often base what we want to do here in this life on some of our past life relationships, past gifts and talents we've honed, right? Past trauma that we want to work through. So past lives are very powerful when you look at them and ask about them in certain ways. It's not about, oh, was I ever anyone, famous or rich? Was I a king or a queen or, things like that. It's like, what gifts and talents did I bring from some of these lifetimes? Or is there an old karmic pattern from a lifetime that's still affecting me in this life that I wanted to work on, learn about, heal, and often then teach about? So karma in that way is always about soul growth. And it is a process for us as humans to come to understand and finally move from a place of pain or trauma or anger, hurt, whatever those lower vibrational energies are, to move to a place of forgiveness and compassion and love. And then often that might be part of your soul purpose also, is to share some of that information with people.
Interesting. Okay. So now I'm curious from hearing everything you said. At one point, something you said, I had this visualization of, okay, it sounds like not just a soul's plan, but would you say that our souls are writing the curriculum for, like, you're going down there to learn? So, okay, soul, I'm going to create the curriculum for this particular experience. And then from the ways that you've seen it, are these lives parallel? And does it serve us any way to recognize that some things might be going on concurrently or
Yeah. So, um, so before we embody, we really are on a mission, right? We are, people say this, and I know I just always thought, oh, that's crazy. But we feel very lucky to be here, especially at this time in history. So we write ourselves these big missions, which are our soul's plan, which is relatively complex. So most of us write, I don't know, 30 to 50 soul contracts with other people who are embodied now to support them, to learn from them, to have them learn from you, to work through karmic patterns, right? So these can be pretty complex, not always fun relationships. And of course, we have support contracts with those beautiful people who are here to support us, and we're here to support them. And that's just kind of that one part. Of course, you have honed many, many, many gifts over the hundreds and hundreds of lifetimes that we live on Earth,
yeah.
right? So we want to bring those gifts back depending on what it is. So we want to grow and share the wisdom that we have. And so to me, nothing is written in stone. Life is not predestined. It is pre-planned,
Mhm.
but it's not destined or destiny in that sort of way, because that's what they always say, nothing's written in stone. So you can such as if you have a soul contract with a person and maybe you're working through a big challenge that you both have, say, and maybe you're working on an addictive pattern. Maybe you're both alcoholics together and you're like, I'm going to get sober. I really want to do something different. And they say, I'm not into it. And so you go off. So the contract actually ends because you leave and they have not lived up to their half of the contract, but the contract becomes null and void. So even though you had a contract to say, get sober together and move forward and maybe have a beautiful life, if that person isn't interested in completing the contract, it becomes null and void, and you carry on with your part that you want to finish. Now, they will likely end up coming back again to work on addictive patterns, or they'll have that opportunity with someone else later on, right?
You're
So
right.
we might even write a few contracts around ending an addictive pattern because it might or might not work out with the first person or the second person. And maybe by the third person, maybe you get it. Maybe whatever it is different. So, um, so even our contracts can be completed, they can kind of be nullified, and they may or may not, depending on what part you're holding, go on and be completed at a later date. So we're very complicated. Like I say, we make a plan, but it's not written in stone.
Yeah.
Um, and so the nice thing is that especially with higher energy, more light coming to the planet right now, more people are waking up. I believe that more and more people will really complete a lot more of their contracts through raising their consciousness. And so again, this is one of the reasons the record keepers have really pushed me over the years to teach more people, get out there bigger, write 4 books, speak on over 1,000 podcasts, radio shows,
Yes.
summits, to try and help humanity actually remember, in a sense, this um, infiniteness of the soul, and to start to realize that having access into this information, into your Akashic record and your soul's plan, is actually your birthright.
Yes. Wow. Okay. So I have a
And I
question.
didn't answer the other
Oh,
half of the
oh no,
question.
that's okay. Go
What?
ahead, please.
so, 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 so timelines are interesting things. Timelines, parallel universes. You know what I find the easiest way to look at it is that everything is part of the creator energy of the quantum void,
Hmm.
where there is no time and space. And to me, this is what I hear, is where the energy of the Akasha and all of these big, expansive libraries are held. And everything is always happening, all these lives. So there really is no such thing as a past life, which the great news is that means um, I can go into your past trauma, whether it's from, you know, something that happened 20 years ago or happened when you were 2 or 3 or 5 or 200 or 2000 years ago. Doesn't matter because there really is no time and space. So we can heal those and release the emotional pain and trauma that often create energy blocks in our field, in our energetic field. So, um, kind of doesn't matter if it's a parallel universe. Yes, there's those. There are lifetimes happening at the same time. Like there may be 2 or 3 of you on the planet at this time having very different lives. What I find is that we almost never meet each other. And even if we did, we probably wouldn't know,
Yeah.
right? Because you would maybe be a man living in Asia, or something that you just wouldn't bump into each other, because we have a lot of work to do because
Yeah.
we're infinite souls, we're ancient souls, so we want to come and do all of this stuff. And so there may be 3 aspects of your soul on the planet at the same time.
Very interesting. So with the soul contracts, though, I understand that if we say we go into our records or whatever method you use, if you become aware of reason behind certain patterns and habits, and a lot of times just that understanding will initiate healing for us. And it just is almost like a sigh of relief because we can understand. But can you choose to work with the record keepers to update your soul contract? So, say if you were in a space, do people come to you and say, Lisa, I don't know what to do right now? And perhaps there is something already destined or planned, but can you consciously choose to update your record, so to speak, or remap the plan?
Yeah. Yeah, you can. You actually can. We have to be kind of at an energetic place where that's come to completion somehow. So I have lots of clients who come to me and they say, I've been married for 20 years or 30 years. Is my contract done yet? And sometimes it's very funny. They'll be like, yeah, it's been done for like 10 years. And the contract is actually complete, but we as humans feel like, oh, well, I'm married. I should stick around, but not always the case.
Mhm.
And so they may be complete. We're just not aware of it. Um, I often love to update contracts, especially with like parents and children, even sometimes siblings, or you can even update a contract. Sometimes we get stuck, right? It's a human thing. Whereas your parent may still see you as a 5-year old or a 15-year old, teenager, and you're 50, and you're all like, hey, wait.
Yeah,
I'm all grown up. You
right.
don't have to treat me that way anymore. And so, energetically, again, no time space, it's a very handy thing. We can really move that contract into this present moment. And so they can be updated and upgraded. Now, the thing that they always love us to understand is that forgiveness completes a lot of karmic patterns, most karmic patterns, when we can really deeply move into a place of forgiveness, whether we've been hurt or we've hurt someone else, or sometimes we just hurt ourselves. Doing forgiveness work is very, very profound because it really can move us into a place of self-love, forgiving ourselves as well as others. Compassion, a much, much deeper compassion and ability to really feel what there's no good word for, but is much more kind of divine love, right? Not human love, but divine, more source love, where there truly is no judgment.
Yeah.
And so when we can do that kind of forgiveness work, that will really help us to kind of shift and open ourselves. And that's a beautiful way to, kind of update everything, because we're really coming into a place of living much more in this moment, right? Where we can feel that. And of course, we fall back out of it. We might be in forgiveness and compassion and love and kindness, and then something happens and we get triggered and we fall out. But again, it's a process for us humans, but
Yeah.
we can shift a lot of these things, even healing karmic patterns, through these conscious ways of understanding. And yes, that's again, to me, one of the huge gifts of working in the Akashic Records is that we get that view, that insight, that deep understanding, which kind of instantaneously clears the old energy, just kind of explodes. Often is the way I see it. It's just like, oh my gosh, bang, I get it, right?
Yeah.
And it completely shifts and really heals a lot of the old energy. So
Wow. Well, I have to ask you because you have referred to them a few times, the Akashic Record Keepers. And in this realm, we hear about all kinds of guides and guardians and different energies that we may be working with. The Akashic Record Keepers, do you only meet them if you're accessing that realm of consciousness, or do you find that they also may work with people in like a lower level of consciousness as well?
So, um, kind of a tricky question, but but of course, they have an answer for you. So, the Akashic Record Keepers are pure source energy. They are pure beings of light. They've never been human. They're not angelic. They're not ascended masters, because ascended masters really go through that whole human thing, learn and ascend. Um, so, they have no judgment. They have not had these kind of experiences. So they are much more a part of a higher vibrational energy, that I would relate a little bit more. If you were looking at an emotional scale of 0 to 1,000, they come in somewhere around the upper levels of love or joy or peace. So they all come in around 600, 700, 800. So it's easier. It's much easier for most of us as humans to talk to our ancestors or our loved ones who have crossed over. So being a medium or actually hearing those people who have crossed over is easier because they're in a closer dimension. So the record keepers say it is everyone's birthright to access the Akash, but part of the process is starting to clear and raise your vibration. And that's why they've given me a dozen plus tools to help people to do that.
Yeah. Because well, I've always described it as it felt like an acclimating to the frequency of, because I remember when I first would go in, it seemed like a sentence or two. Like I wasn't really getting much. And then over time, there was so much information I could hardly keep up. And so I was like, maybe we have to acclimate to that frequency to really kind of tap in, tune in. So it's very interesting hearing, yeah, the way that you're describing everything, quite frankly. So the soul's plan, I want to make sure I get to ask you about this because people are curious. Is this why we have this questioning, so many of us, of what is my purpose? Like, why is that even a question? If you think about it, like it's a very interesting thing that so many people almost ache over this curiosity.
Right. Yeah, I find it interesting because, I'll tell you what the record keepers actually say. They say your purpose is to complete your soul's plan. And we have many purposes. If you had one, you would be bored out of your mind.
Yeah.
Seriously. I have to say, and you probably really experienced this. The record keepers are really funny,
Yeah.
right? They're pure source energy. They're pure light and joy. And so they are very funny, which is, kind of why they literally speak that way. And so they think it's very important, of course, that we see that bigger picture and that we realize that sometimes your purpose is working in a bank and holding that energy and light and higher vibration or frequency that you hold in this kind of banking world, in this place, in this moment.
Right.
I mean, sometimes when I travel, and I travel a lot, and I have to say, I have fabulous travel karma. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Gratitude is always a good thing. But every once in a while, like if a plane is really late or something, I'm stuck for it. And I always think, really? But they're like, there's some energy needed in this place at
Mm,
this time, right? So sometimes what we're doing is holding a light in a place. Most of us don't ever think about that being part of your purpose. Many, many, many of us have purposes as parents to bring in these higher vibrational children and to hold that energy and space. So, of course, spiritual people often have very spiritual, awake children, which is needed on our planet today. So it's not nothing to have that as part of your purpose, to be that parent. Um, And so there are things that we often might consider kind of whatever normal or mundane and think that maybe we're in the wrong place. But again, when we start to realize that one of our purposes is to be of service, and that might be as a nurse or a waiter or something like that, or even a lot of service people are also can be doctors and different things like that. But it's very much service to humanity compared. And then I will sometimes see that kind of plan going purposes as they get older and move through some of their soul growth and learning. They move from service to a place much more of the sage or the priestess or priest. And the to me the sage is very much about communicating the higher energy, the higher wisdom, beauty, love. And priestess is more of a spiritual archetype, may be to be a spiritual teacher or to hold that higher energy and light for the people in your community. Maybe you become a shaman or a Reiki master, or you start to teach some of these classes, or you channel a book through the Akash. So we might start in service to humanity and end up more in service really to the higher good. So our purposes change over time.
I'm sure that's a relief for a lot of people listening because, yeah, it does. It seems to be such a, it's just interesting that it's so many people that come into the space of feeling like either I'm not living in alignment with my purpose or I really need to know what is my purpose. So even with all that you shared, the thought came in of dissatisfaction. Because a lot of times, let's say a certain phase of life, what we're working out is a particular part of our purpose or a particular contract, but we all hit spaces where we may feel dissatisfied with whatever it may be. Is that essence of from the work that you've done, have you noticed that it tends to be related to not being in alignment with something in our contract? Or is it that maybe a contract has ended and, like you say, we didn't realize it? So now we're just like, this feels off.
Right.
Yeah. And
Right. So the way I often see it is, again, that may be the push for you to take that next leap.
yeah.
Right? You've completed maybe that aspect of working in that bank, and now they want to make you kind of uncomfortable or bored. So to push you maybe to start your new business or whatever it might be. So I think that dissatisfaction is often our soul being like, okay, time to move on. Just like I said, if we had one purpose, we would be just bored.
Yeah.
You And that, what if that purpose was done when you were 20? Now what? Right? So there are many stages and phases. And so that could be it. There can be other kind of aspects, like maybe there's energetic blocks we haven't worked through. And so some of that is pushing us to maybe get a little bit more spiritual, to learn something new, to again, take a step out of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
And again, it's very much about soul growth. We want to grow as a soul. So if you're in doubt, I mean, even often things like accidents can be about us not listening to our soul and the soul pushing us to wake up in some way or another.
Yes.
And so it's not about everything being easy, right? Even, I would say is passionate, and I am very passionate about my work. That doesn't mean it's always easy. And some of it, like I'll share a personal story just today. I'm putting on an Akashic Record conference in San Francisco next week. And one of my teachers who comes and also teaches at the conference. I have two beautiful teachers who have been with me for a long time, and they teach also at this 3-day conference. And he's not able to come from Mexico up to California. And so I was like, oh my gosh, what now? You know, um, frustration. No. And then I was like, oh, I kind of got that message. Like, you have a lot of locals, even local students and people who I've known who have studied with me here in the San Francisco Bay Area for the last 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
Call on them, honor them.
Yeah.
And so I did. And I have a woman who's bringing her singing bowls, and another one who channels Tesla and ETs who's going to speak. And I was like, oh, I'm so excited. This is so great. I was stuck in an old pattern of this is the way we did it last time. We'll do it again this time. Universe wasn't in alignment, made me, think out of the box.
Yes.
Ask the record keepers, okay, what else? What am I missing? What else? What else? And now I'm really excited because I'm like, oh, this is so cool.
Yeah.
So, all phases of our lives, we have these experiences, and often they are to push us to think out of the box, to create something new. You are a creator being. Innately, every single one of you are creator beings, and we've come to create. We've come to create a new earth. And when we stop creating, when we sit back in a way, then we stagnate, and then, of course, for me, the record keepers will come along and, kick me with some in some way or another, be like, hey, come on, you
Yeah.
can do better, you can do something new. And then I'm like, that's right. Wow, crazy. So it happens through our whole life. And really thankfully, I am grateful for some of these challenges that pop up, because it reminds me to think outside the box, to do something a little bit different, to create something new, to honor a teacher who's been with my school for a long time, but I've never called on to teach at an event like this.
Yeah.
And so it's great for everybody.
Yes. No, and it's amazing just hearing how slight shift in perspective can make such a big difference, because I'm sure people listening, you know, hopefully a light bulb is going off at those times where things don't go the way that we wanted them to, and we automatically are frustrated or feel like we're being punished in some way, but rather just looking at, okay, what opportunity is opening up in this discomfort or in this, unpredictable shift that just happened. That can make a huge difference in how we move forward or resist. So I wanted to ask you this too, about why. So if there's anyone who's never gone into the Akashic Records, could you talk a little bit about why someone may want to create a relationship with their Akashic Record keepers, even if you weren't necessarily interested in past lives, so to speak? What could it help us with in working
Mm,
in this realm?
beautiful. Yes. So because we truly are really ancient souls, there is so much wisdom held in the Akash for you, right? And whether it can benefit you, like we're talking about understanding trauma in our lives. It helps to move us from maybe feeling like a victim, wondering why the heck would I have that, terrible parent or abusive family or that accident experience, can move us into understanding, so our soul is able to grow. And then we often get gifts from it when we understand it, that we can, maybe we help one other person, maybe we can share with one other person, and that transforms their life. So really receiving the phenomenal benefit of understanding the bigger picture, understanding the emotional pain and trauma that most of us, I'm going to say all of us, have levels and levels of. So that's huge. And one of the other things in that kind of realm of understanding, not only understanding, but clearing and releasing trauma, emotional pain. It's something that the record keepers have asked me to teach my students because it is teachable energetically, again, in this quantum field of the Akash. And so being able to clear and release and I blow things up. I'm a big fan. I'm a fan of explosions and fire, which is kind of a little funny, I think, when I say that, because I think, weird. Um, but it helps us to release and recycle old energy, which actually gives us more vitality back. So we can work on physical pains that are often stuck energy, stuck emotions. We can release them and get really physical healing as well as tremendous emotional healing. And so many of my clients come to me because they have those kind of questions about, is this contract complete, or am I to learn something or to do something different? And that kind of aha moments that we get is, again, transformational. It lets us move on. If you've been stuck in a marriage that contract is done for 10 years, right? You're being like, oh, heavens, I'm going to move on. I get to travel, and my husband hates to travel, and I'm ready to, you know, meet some new people and do some spiritual work, or maybe something fun like, spiritual travel, whatever that might be. Understanding these contracts with our family, I think, is so empowering, because we also may have complete contracts with even our parents or our siblings or our children that are holding us back. So this present life contracts that are keeping us stuck in a pattern that we're unaware of, right? Stuck in playing small, stuck in hiding in different ways, because we can be programmed by other people in our life. So, skipping anything that has to do with past lives, our parents program us, our schools, our religions, our everything. Holds a lot of our planet, holds a lot of really big collective programs and contracts. So when we can start to understand those, again, we can let them go or change our relationship to them, right? So we can update these contracts in a way that will change your relationship. You may still have a contract with your addicted mother, but when we update that contract and bring it into present time, the feeling of I have to save her, or I have to, kind of take care of her, which may be not your path. And understanding that, again, is such a huge release and relief if you go, oh, I don't have to give up my life to that person. The record keepers are suggesting I get some help to do some of those things that are not even mine to do.
Yeah, with all of this too, it comes to mind how I think a lot of us may not realize how unlocking one wound or unlocking one aspect of awareness, say there's one particular fear or pattern or habit that we have, and if we become aware of that thing and can change, how we hold it, how we understand it, that it actually unlocks a lot of layers in our healing. So even if, it's coming to mind if we are having a challenge in a particular relationship, some sort of healing around that may also heal some issues you're having in your work environment, and you wouldn't think they were related, but somehow they are. So it's interesting how this work can be so expansive, and I think opens up much bigger than a lot of us would ever expect. So I want to make sure, because I know I only have like 10 minutes left with you, I want to talk about how people can work with you. So they can work with you one on one. You have the online classes, but you also have a retreat coming up. So could you give us a bit of
Yes,
when to
absolutely.
come? Yes.
Right. So I have a 6-day retreat in Costa Rica that is coming up the end of April, the 24th through the 29th of April. And I am teaching Akashic Self Mastery, which is the first course where you learn to read, and the second course where you go deeply into about a half a dozen realms that you can access that are useful to us in the Akash. And so it's a really beautiful deep dive for 3 full days into the Akashic Records. And then we have a fun excursion day, and it's really lovely. I have a chef, a private chef, cooking all of our meals for us at the retreat center. And it would be just a very, very fun, very heart connected. I know it's going to be so, so powerful for everybody who comes. So I would love to see a few of you in Costa Rica, April 24th through the 29th. This is 2025.
Yes.
So,
And I I'm not sure if it's this year, but you have a 2 day event in Atlanta as well.
yes.
Is that this year? Yeah, I saw June 7th through 8th.
Yes, yes. So I one of my books is called Kasha, and it is part of a series of books which are called Common Sentience series. So unbury my little book and see if I can hold it up.
Oh,
So Common Sentience, and so there are, I believe, 16 books in this series, each one on a different subject. And so there are 6 authors of the Common Sentience series speaking at a 2-day event in Atlanta. So I will be speaking and talking about the Akashic Records and Akasha. I will also do a 3-hour workshop for people who come. And so it'll be a very fun 2 days. The first day, you'll get to see all 6 of the authors. So they're consecutive, so you don't miss anyone. And some beautiful, beautiful authors. So definitely come and say hello in Atlanta, June 6th and 7th. Come, join my workshop on the Akashic Records. It would be lovely to see people.
I'll make sure to put the link for that event as well as the retreat in Costa Rica. We'll put both of those down in the show description. But I also wanted to ask you this too, because you have authored 4 books and it's I think of how many people say they have a book in them but have a hard time writing. Do you open your records when you write? Do people open their records when they are working on any sort of project, or is it just go in, get information, get out, and then how does that work?
So, so I would say the deeper you go into the records, really, the more connected you are at all times. So, because the Akashic Record Keepers have asked me to help re-anchor the energy, they actually asked me to write the books.
Mm.
And so, well, I basically end up saying, okay, what are we writing now? And I lock myself in a room for a few days and I just channel whatever it is. So you can absolutely use it to write your books. I have students who use it to write like novels, stories, to write autobiographies. You can open your records and have the record keepers help you to channel whatever that is. I've seen people use it really, it's so kind of super powers your creativity again, because it's
Yeah.
accessing the energy of the quantum, which is part of the void source creativity, right? We are truly creator beings at our core. That's who you are. And so working in the records will really supercharge your creativity, whether you're using it for cooking dinner or opening a restaurant or writing a book or raising your kids or starting a business. Whatever it is, it really is there for you. So It is profound work. I teach, as a matter of fact, I teach people not only Akashic self mastery, where you learn to really master your own personal Akashic records, which is phenomenal and transformational. But I also teach people to read the records for other people. But I don't do it in a one off weekend or something like that. The record keepers have asked that I do literally a year-long certification training. And so just before this, I was meeting with my students who are in the year-long certification training, and they were doing readings for each other. They're brand new at it, and they were like, "Wow, that is so phenomenal! Like that's one of the most amazing experiences that that they have ever felt." So when you first open the records for somebody, and I don't know if you've had this experience, Yolanda, but you go into someone else's records, they're different than yours. Your record keepers have kind of a different voice, a little bit of a different energy. And so having that experience is really transformational in its own right. It really makes you realize in a deeper level that you are accessing something that is so beyond you. It's not just an intuitive hit. It's not, maybe a clairvoyant image. It is these huge, high vibrational access into this person's library of their soul. And so I just saw these women just be transformed, like, oh, this is just it. It's like just their second class of the year-long program. And they were like, I am all in. I'm kind of giving up everything else. I am all, and I laughed. I said, you know how I had said maybe you'll join my teacher training program next year, and you kind of looked at me like, let me try and become a certified consultant first, and I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, sure. And then after opening the records for someone else and getting all this information, they were like, I think I might be in for teaching.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is transformational energy and wisdom and light.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a very powerful thing too, because sometimes we come towards this kind of work because we do have questions and maybe we're trying to gain clarity. But I think on the back end, what we may not expect that often happens is we also end up in a deeper relationship with ourselves. And then we end up trusting ourselves more. And then we feel more comfortable navigating life because we know we have these different resources. And yeah, I think it softens us in a lot of ways.
Mm. I love that.
Yeah.
Yes, so beautiful, right? It really does transform us because to me, when you can see, know, feel, hear, experience the depth of who you are as an infinite soul,
Yeah.
all of these hundreds and hundreds of lifetimes, the wisdom you've held, the things you've shared and taught in the world and in even maybe some other realms, it really does help us to see ourselves instead of just these little kind of frail humans
Yes.
as huge infinite souls. And that to me is that moment of like, wow, that alone is a huge healing.
Ah, I have to say, I'm so glad that I got to meet you today, Lisa. This was a great conversation. And, just like I said, I was introduced to Akashic Records in 2011, but I love meeting people and having these conversations because you always expand my understanding, my awareness, my curiosity, just as I'm sure people listening will feel the same. So if anyone wants to work with you, Lisa's website is akashicknowing.com. The link is down in the show description. Also, the Costa Rica retreat is April 24th through the 29th, and that link will be down below as well. And then you have the 2-day event in Atlanta in June, June 7th and 8th. So you have
Boy,
a
I think
lot
it
going
was the
on.
7th. Well, I'm not sure. Okay.
Well, we'll put the link. It'll
Okay,
have the
put that
correct
link.
dates. Yes. And directly working with you as well. People can work with
Yes.
you one on one, come to you for sessions, and you have 4 books. I mean, you're busy.
Yeah, so this is the one that you were referring to. Your soul has a plan. It's
Yes.
awaken to your life purpose through your Akashic record. So I dive
Perfect.
deep in this book into all these different aspects of your soul's plan. And I think it's profound and helpful for people to really start to understand that you don't have one purpose. You have contracts and gifts and talents and karma and patterns and all these things that are part of your purposes.
Yeah. And I think we all feel better once we know there's a way of figuring that out. So thank you for the work that you do, Lisa. And for everyone else, be sure to check out Lisa's work. Again, all of the links are in the show description, and we will see you soon. Bye for now. Okay, beautiful alchemist. I just want to thank Lisa again for having this wonderful conversation with us, for taking time to chat with us here on Reiki Radio. And just so that you know, Lisa does specialize in empowering individuals to find greater abundance, guidance, and love by aligning with their soul's plan in the Akashic Records. So, again, you can work with Lisa by visiting her website, akashicknowing.com. And Lisa has been featured on Gaia TV with George Nori and on Humanities Team TV. She has done so much work. And as we mentioned in the conversation, she's written 4 books on the Akashic Records. So you can learn more of that again on her website, akashickknowing.com. If you want to learn more about me and my work, be sure to visit theenergeticalchemist.com. Sign up for the newsletter while you are there. There are upcoming classes and information that you will have access to just by signing up for the newsletter. So, thank you for being part of the community. Thank you for being here. I will see you all very soon. And remember to always journey in love.